Hello, family. Welcome to A-Level Law, and today we're looking at the legal systems around the world. Let's get right into it. Welcome back. So we're going to be looking at, just like we said, we're looking at the legal systems around the world, the different legal systems around the world. And so let's look at the legal systems that we have around the world that we're going to be studying. So number one, we're going to be looking at the codified civil legal system. Number two, we're going to be looking at the common law, and then the customary law, and then the religious law, and then lastly, the mixed legal system. So we're going to be starting off with the codified legal system. And so I know it's a lot of words and you probably just want them to be broken down. I've got you. So let's break down these words. We want to look at the word codified. We want to look at the word civil. We want to look at the word legal system. So let's start off with answering the question, what is a legal system? Now, a legal system is a set of laws, rules, and institutions that govern a country. So we say it is a set of laws, rules, and institutions that govern a country. So we have laws and we have rules and we have institutions like the courts that govern a country. It provides a way of resolving disputes. So if there are disputes, if there are issues, the legal system is there to provide the way to resolve those disputes. It also provides a way of enforcing laws. So if we say stealing is a crime, how do we enforce it? How do we make sure people don't steal? And if they are steal, what happens to them? How do we make sure that if we say this is not an area where someone is supposed to build their house, how do we enforce it? We need the police. We need people like authorities that are there to enforce the law, and all of those things are part of the legal system. They are part of the legal system and they enforce those laws. And number three, the legal system provides a way of protecting individual rights. So you have a right to not be raped, right? It's called the right to bodily integrity. So you have that right, and so the legal system is there to protect those individual rights. A legal system typically includes, number one, laws. So what are laws? Laws are a set of rules and regulations that govern behavior and provides consequences for non-compliance. So a law, it's a rule that governs behavior that says you don't do this, you must do this, and so it's regulating behavior. And the law will also provide consequences. It will say, if you do this, then you're going to be imprisoned for 3 years. If you do this, then you're going to have to pay a fine of this amount. Number two, a legal system will have institutions. So institutions like the courts, the tribunals, and other bodies. So courts and tribunals and other bodies that interpret and apply the law. So courts and tribunals, their job is to interpret, to read the law and say, what does this mean? And to apply it, to decide matters, who is right, who is wrong, what is supposed to be done. That's the part where courts and tribunals come through. So we'll talk about, I'm sure you know courts. We'll talk about tribunals as we go along, but just know they are a type of a court in very simple terms. Now, a legal system will also include procedures. So procedures are the processes and the rules that govern how laws are enforced and how disputes are resolved. So if someone breaks a law, a police officer doesn't just come and beat them up. There are laws, there are rules that are in place. There are procedures that if you want to have someone who has broken the law accountable, what do? You don't beat them yourself. You have to go to the police, and then the police has to take the matter to the prosecutor. The prosecutor has to go to the court, and there are procedures that are there to make sure that justice is served. A legal system will also have practitioners. These are the people who work the legal system. So when we're looking at practitioners, we're looking at people like the judges, the lawyers, and other professionals who are working within the legal system. Now, we want to start off, now that we understand what is a legal system, we want to look at what is civil law. So civil law simply means the law that governs the relationship between private persons, such as the law of contract. And when we're talking about civil law, we are not talking about crimes. So private persons, you and me, if we get into a contract, right, that I'm supposed to do something for you, I'm supposed to teach you a certain number of classes, and then you're supposed to pay me some fees for the work. If I teach you, then you have to pay me the money. But if we have a dispute, if we don't understand each other, we can take each other to a civil court to have that matter resolved. So this is where civil law is concerned. So it's about relationship that governs private persons. Or even if my company buys things from your company and those things are defective or they're damaged, I can take you to the civil court where we ask the court to decide who is wrong and who should pay who. Now let's look at what is a code. So a code is a systematic collection of laws, rules, or regulations that govern a particular area or activity. It is a written document that outlines the rules and guidelines that must be followed. So it is written, it is a document that has all the rules and the laws and the regulations that govern a particular area or a particular activity. So we can have a code that deals with contract law, right? About how contracts are supposed to be done, what constitutes or what is a valid contract, and all of that. So it's a written document that has everything that you need about the law of contract. So it tells you all the things that you need to understand. Now let's look at what is a codified legal system. So a codified legal system, it is a type of legal system where all the laws are written down in one comprehensive, which means that has all the things that you need, code, right? So it is where the law or all the laws are written down in a single comprehensive code. So this code will serve as the primary source of law, right? And it will provide a clear and systematic framework or structure of governing behavior, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, and also a structure of how we resolve disputes. So it will have all the laws on that. Now, let's look at what is a civil codified legal system. So now we are putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to explain now what is a civil codified legal system. It is a legal system that is based on a comprehensive written code governing civil matters, providing a clear framework for resolving disputes and regulating relationships between individuals. So I hope you understand that. So it is civil codified legal system. It is a legal system which is dealing with civil law, in which all the laws are written down, and those laws are governing all the matters that will arise in all the civil matters that will arise. So this is what a code looks like. So it will be a very gigantic book, just like what you can see on the screen right there. So I just thought I would give you an idea of what it looks like. Under the civil codified legal system, judges have to strictly apply the code to cases that appear before them. They have to strictly apply the code. So if the code says keeping a dog in a particular neighborhood is a crime, right, then the judge is supposed to just follow that. Anyone with a dog in that neighborhood is committing a crime. And if they are caught, the judge is supposed to just rule that they have committed a crime and they're supposed to pay a fine or whatever they need to do. If it means they have to be sent to prison, they're just going to be sent to prison, right? So they have little or no discretion in making their decision. That means that they don't have much room for them to look at the facts, to say, no, look, but this person was only keeping the dog because he had found the dog stranded on his way to work. It seemed like it was lost. He had nowhere to put the dog, so he brought the dog to his house just for the night. Under the civil codified legal system, the judges don't have enough room to use those other facts to decide if a person is guilty or not. They are supposed, for the most part, to just follow what the court says. Keeping a dog or having a dog in a particular neighborhood is a crime. They're just supposed to say, it's a crime, you're going to prison. So that's kind of an extreme case, but I hope it helps you to understand that they have little room or little discretion, which means they don't have much choice when it comes to using their own thinking on a particular case. They have to follow what the court says. And number two, there is little or no precedent in the law. Now, I know this is a new word for you, precedent. So let's look at it. Precedent means previously decided cases will serve as an authority or a guide for deciding similar cases. So precedent, the job of precedent set by an earlier case, it is used to ensure consistency and predictability in the application of law. So if this is confusing you, this example will help you to demystify all of these things. So I'll give you an example of precedent. Case number 1, John sues, which means John reports Tom to the courts, right? John sues Tom after Tom's dog bites him. So John sues him, right, after Tom's dog bites him. They go to court, and the court rules that Tom must pay John for the damages because John was not going to work because he was lying in bed sick because of the dog bite. He also spent a lot of money getting treated. So all of the money that he lost, Tom is supposed to pay him back, right? That's what the court decides. Now, later, case number 2, Emily sues her neighbor for damages after her dog bites her, right? So Emily, who stays somewhere else in another neighborhood, is also beat by his neighbor's dog, and he sues his neighbor. The court will use the ruling from John's case as precedent. Now you see what happens now. It will look at what they have already decided before. That's what precedent means. And it will then use that precedent and rules that Emily's neighbor is also liable for damages, just like what happened in the previous case. So Emily's neighbor will also pay damages because we are using precedent, a previous case, a previous ruling in a previous case, to also help us to ensure consistency, so that there is consistency. People now know that if someone else's dog bites you, you can then go to court and sue them, and they'll have to pay you for damages. Many European countries have codified legal systems. So countries like France and Germany, they have codified legal systems. So a country with a codified legal system will also generally have a written constitution and a constitutional court as the highest court of appeal. So a highest court of appeal, it means sometimes you go to a smaller court, and then they'll give you a decision. They'll rule, right? If you're not satisfied, if you think that the ruling that they gave is not the correct one, you can also go to a higher court, right, and say, I was not satisfied with the ruling that the other court, I think they made a mistake. Can you hear my case? In that higher court, if they give you a ruling, and if you're not satisfied again, you can then take it to the highest court, which is usually called the constitutional court in many countries. So countries that have a codified legal system usually have a constitutional court, which is the highest court of appeal. This is the last court you can then go to if you're not satisfied with the decision of the previous courts. So the role of the constitutional court is to interpret the constitution and the code, right? It doesn't make new law. Their role is not to make new law. It is to interpret the constitution. What is a constitution? So I know I'm more of a geek. I want you to understand everything. A constitution basically is that document that establishes a country. That document that says, how do we select a president? How does the police deal with the citizens? How does new law come to be enacted? How do we make new laws? So it is the foundational document, and it forms the supreme law, the highest law of the land. So that's what a constitution is. So that's it on the codified civil legal system. Now let's look at common law. Now, for common law, I want us to go through a bit of some history. I want us to look at the Norman conquest. Now, after the death of King Edward, war broke over succession between William, the Duke of Normandy, who was the king's cousin, who claimed that the king had promised him the throne, and Harold Godwinson, the powerful Earl of Wessex, who was the king's brother-in-law, who had been crowned the king by the English nobles. So they went to battle, they fought each other, then the Duke of Normandy came out victorious. Now, so after the Norman conquest, in 1065, judges were then sent by the king to major towns to decide cases and to dispense judges, to dispense justice, which means just to decide cases and make sure people get justice under the king's name on behalf of the king. So over a period of time, it is then believed that on their return to Westminster in London, they would discuss with each other the laws and the customs that they had used. So a custom basically is, I'm sure you probably, you can understand this. For example, if you're living in a neighborhood where everyone is free to park in front of anyone's house, right? Over time, that just becomes a law or a rule that everyone just agrees to, that everyone can park in front of anyone's house, right? If that can then become a custom where everyone generally agrees that this is what we do, and it's been done for a long time. So that's what a custom is. So when the judges would come from the various places where they would have gone to judge cases, they would come and then they would discuss with each other the laws that they had used and the customs that they had used and the decisions that they had made. And so gradually the judges selected the best customs and the best decisions, and these were then used by all the judges throughout the country. So this had the effect of making the law more uniform across the whole country, and it is from here that the phrase common law seems to have developed. So common law, it is the basis of English law. When I say English law, we're talking about the law that governs areas like England and Wales. So common law, it is the unwritten law that developed from the customs and judicial decisions, just like I have explained. So the customs that were used by the judges who were being sent, and judicial decisions that were used, and that were also then used even after that period. So those customs and those judicial decisions form what is called common law. These are the unwritten laws that developed from customs and judicial decisions. So the phrase common law is still used now to distinguish or to separate the laws that have been developed by judicial decisions, right? Because when people, remember we talked about precedent, right? Those are the laws that are developed by judicial decisions, right? It has still used the term common law to distinguish the difference between those kind of laws and then the laws that are made by the parliament or the legislature, right? Where parliament sits down and say, what are we going to do about this kind of behavior? They put a law and things like that. Now, let's look at the third law, or the third type of law. It is called customary law. So let's start by looking what a custom is. So a custom is a rule of behavior which develops in a community without being deliberately invented. So like I said, if everyone just parks in front of anyone's house, right, over time it just becomes a rule that everyone agrees to, even though no one ever sat down with each other, and even though people never sat down to say we want to make this rule, but we generally begin to accept it, and it just becomes a rule that everyone generally accepts. So however, custom in England is a historical source, and it is unlikely to create new law today. Right? And it is also unusual for new custom to be considered by the courts today, and even rare for the courts to decide it to be recognized as a valid custom. Right? But we have had such type of cases in not so much distant history. So let's look at one case that we've had, but it's been a long time ago, but not that much long. So in the case of the New Windsor Corporation and Mello in 1947, a local authority was prevented from building on land because the local people actually proved that there was a custom giving them the right to use the land for lawful sports. So yeah, in 1947, customary law was actually used in our courts, in the courts in England. So yeah, but not recently. We don't use it anymore as much. Then we also have what is called religious law. So religious laws come from the sacred texts of a religion, and they cover most parts of personal and contract law. So personal law, like I've said, it's laws that govern individuals' personal life, relationships, and family matters, things like divorce, things like who takes the kids when people divorce, things like that. That's personal law, right? Or things like paying maintenance for a child, things like that. Then it also covers things like contract law, right? Where if someone says they're going to do something, they're supposed to do it according to the agreement that they made. If you're saying you're going to sell this to you for this amount of money, I want to make sure that the thing is in good condition. And all of that is provided in some religious laws. So the religious law is generally based on the Sharia and the Judaic law. So the Sharia law in Islam states, the Judaic law this is for the Jews, so you think of Israel. So they can apply in countries that have other legal systems in place. So usually there's religious law will apply in countries that have already other legal systems in place, and they would come alongside those legal systems. So it could be a country with a codified or a common law system. So religious laws are seen to be eternal and unchanging. They govern a person's behaviors, beliefs, and disputes are settled by a priest or other religious officials. So by comparison, non-religious laws can be changed by the legislature. Non-religious laws, they deal with a person's actions towards another, and the disputes are resolved by an independent judiciary, not a priest, but by an independent court system. Now let's look at the last legal system that we're going to be looking at. It's called the mixed legal system. So apologies for the mix-up, folks. That's just to pull your leg. But legal systems based on any combination of civil code, common law, statute law, religious law are said to be mixed legal system. So if it is a combination of at least two of those legal systems that I've just mentioned, it's called a mixed legal system. So examples would be South Africa and Cyprus and even Zimbabwe, right? They are said to have mixed legal systems because they have a mix of common law and civil code rules, right? The contributions of common law and civil code to the whole law of the country are substantial. It means they're very apparent, they're a lot, right? And they are very recognizable. The private law is likely to be dominated by the civil code elements and the public law by common law elements. So in summary, we have discussed the 5 legal system around the world. We have discussed the codified legal system, the common law, the customary law, the religious law, and the mixed legal system. So 5, yay. So congratulations, guys. You have made it to the end. I'm proud of you. If this is adding any value to you guys, just smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss all of our content. It is amazing content. I'm sure you can tell it's amazing content. We also have an online school, and all of this content is part of our online school material. So if you want to be part of the online school and get so much more than what is on this video, this is amazing content, but there is so much more amazing stuff. There's so many good and amazing teachers waiting for you. So if you want to join our online school, just check the details in the description of this channel or the description of this video. Until next time, peace.